I see the button. So let me know.
There we
There it
go.
is. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. This is the show where we talk about Boston sports. We talk about the Boston Celtics, the Boston Bruins, the Boston Red Sox, and the New England Patriots. Before we dive in, Steve, how you doing? How's everything? Steve's also known as Negative Ned, so he might not be too today. How you doing, Steve?
Good, Frank. How you doing? How's your weekend?
It was great because
Nice long weekend.
yeah, yeah.
That's good.
I enjoyed a lot of it. I did a lot of sleeping. I caught up on a lot of my sleep. I did a walk on the beach. I went to the Quincy Beach. Walked with my dog there. Everything. I enjoyed myself. What'd you do this weekend?
I went to Vermont to visit my parents. I haven't seen them
Oh,
since last September,
oh wow.
so it was good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're gonna dive into the show. There's a lot to talk about. I want to say before we dive into it, I've been listening to sports talk the last 2 days, and I'm not happy with the narrative that people are spinning. And we'll dive into that once we jump into it. But the first thing we got to talk about, and we want to talk about this week, is we want to talk about the Boston Red Sox because believe it or not, the Boston Red Sox are not as bad as we thought they would. Steve, you and I both know we thought the Red Sox were going to be about 300 teams, maybe 400 teams. But right now it's let's see, what month is it now? It's May. It's still early, but the Red Sox are basically they're a 500 baseball team, and I'm kind of I'm kind of I'm kind of happy. I can see. I know I said a couple of months ago, and I said a couple of weeks ago that let's see where the Red Sox spin out with. They had a pretty couple of good series, and then the last two series weren't so good. Especially now, this series they're diving in with Baltimore. They're not doing that well. It's still a 50-50 split. So I don't know, Steve. Are you saying to me that the Red Sox are what? Are you still feeling what you were feeling before? What's your thoughts on the Red Sox? Where are you at with the Red Sox? Are you seeing?
I'm still surprised. I mean, they they're 500 now, and I didn't expect them to be 500 now. I expected them to be probably in the basement, and they're in third place, and they're like only a few games out of a wild card spot. So it's definitely a surprise. I think that you know there's a few areas where they're coming back down to earth. The starting pitching's been great for the most part, but there's a couple guys coming back down to earth. Cutter Crawford in particular. But listen, it's still early, right? It's the at the end of May. If you'd have told me, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the season the Red Sox had a shot to be at 500 by the end of May, I think we all would have laughed because just the way the team was built originally. And again, credit to them for finding some pieces to help them stay afloat, so to speak.
Right.
So I'm surprised.
Well, here's a scary thought. If they had better hitting, if the hitting was more consistent, they'd even be better than a 500 ball team. You know what I mean? I
Your
think they'll.
mic is coming in staticky.
Can you hear me now?
You just static. There's static coming from over there. Try and talk now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it's staticky. It sounds like you're on a landline.
Sounds terrible. All right, I'll quit. Well, you continue to talk about the Red Sox. I'm gonna just say, can you hear me? Can you make me out? I'm
I
gonna.
can hear you and I can make out what you're saying, but the static in the background is probably annoying to people if they were to jump on. So I just wanted to tip you off. And I'll continue with your thought about the Red Sox hitting. Uh, and so, listen, this is what happens when you get a guy like Tristan Casas injured and Trevor Story injured, and now you're stuck at first base with two guys that are batting under 200 in a platoon situation that they grabbed. And listen, again, they are a slight upgrade over the guys they had. Brian Dahlback couldn't get the job done. He was sitting, 0-30 or whatever, wasn't getting any hits. And they gave him opportunity and he couldn't cash it in. That's unfortunate because, you know, last year when he went to Worcester, he was down there hitting, 30 homers. And he would be the guy right now if he could have found his swing. And I don't know what the issue is between Worcester and the big club. And I don't know if the hitting coach has something to do with that, or maybe it's his mental. He needs to change the scenery. I'll just put it that way. And so they got a couple guys in here that have major league experience. One guy was on Tampa Bay, and one guy was on the Cubs. And so listen, those are upgrades over. Whoops, we lost Frank. All right, well I'll just keep talking while we wait for him to come back. It's nothing we haven't heard before. Again, they continue to get the Ocean State job lot type guys. These are a slight upgrade over them. Excuse me. Excuse me, getting all choked up over here. So new team for those guys. They're trying to integrate themselves in. There we go.
All right, back in business.
Much better. There we go. Now you don't sound like Rice Krispies, snap, crackle, and pop.
But I went from my iPad back to my phone. So
all right.
Anyway,
we were talking about the hitters, and I was rambling on about the two first baseman guys that they got, one from Tampa and one from the Cubs. They're both hitting around 190-ish, but they're doing better than Dahlback. They're getting some timely hits here and there, and they're playing pretty good defense. So I was saying that they are Ocean State job lot type guys, but they're a little above what they were getting off the scrap heaps from before. So it's still an issue, but it's a little better of an issue. Let's put it that way.
Well, if they're able to put together both things in the next couple of years, they might be doing so. I still think the season's a wash. I think they might make the playoffs. They're definitely not going to. Well, as of right now, they're not going to make the World Series unless they make some drastic changes and somebody starts, maybe 2 or 3 guys start hitting, better than what their average is. But I think personally, my biggest surprise right now is the pitching. I can't believe this. I always thought the pitching would be their worst, but their pitching now is better than it's been in decades. And well, maybe not decades, but definitely years since the World Series run. But they're still ranking in the top 5, and I know you saw that too, Steve. The pitching still ranking in the top 5 in the league, in Major League Baseball. So I'm pretty happy with that. But let me just switch something beside you, something too. Last week you brought up a great point about the pitching, and you brought up a great point about the pitching zone, the pitching box is still never, the strike zone is never the same. It's different. How are you feeling right now about the surprise retirement of Major League umpire Angel Hernandez? Because this is my theory, Steve. This is my theory. I think something happened because pitchers, umpires don't retire in the middle of the season. I think Major League Baseball forced him to retire because they had something on him, and it could be just about anything. But how are you feeling about that surprise announcement in the middle of the season by Angel Hernandez, who is by far the worst umpire in Major League Baseball and has been for decades? That part is true. How are you feeling about that, Steve?
The first thing I'll say is it should have happened probably about 10 years ago.
Right.
The second thing I'll say is if I could do a cartwheel without pulling something, I would have done one after hearing that news, because that if I could have done a cartwheel without winding up in the emergency room, I would have done it, because I think that it's not so much that they had dirt on him. It's just that it's so blatantly obvious how bad that guy's strike zone is that, because they have the box now and they can magnify it and point to how far off he is and how many complaints the players and the managers
and the fans
are giving, and the fans are really starting to get on him. And I think they probably went to him and said, look, we're going to give you 2 options. You're either going to get fired or you're going to take this deal and you're going to leave. Because you can't fire the umpires because of the union. I already heard some stuff about that earlier in the year when he was a hot topic. And he wasn't the only one. There's
2 of them.
There was another guy that they were getting on for having a bad strike zone, and so both of those guys ended up in a conversation with one of the beat writers for MLB somewhere along the line. They were like, "Yeah, you can't. The union's too strong. You can't just outright fire him." But I think that what happens and what's going to continue to happen until they get the automatic balls and strikes is it's bad publicity for the game. They're trying to draw people in. And if the strike zone is that bad and the complaints keep coming, and it can get ugly, as you know, I don't have to tell you, on Twitter and X and whatever the hell they call them, Facebook, social media, that guy's going to get a lot of heat now. And I don't know, I don't want to say he got death threats or he may, would or whatever, but it leads in that direction. It leads in a bad place for those guys. And so, as much as I can't stand him and his stupid strike zone, you don't wish ill will on any of them guys. If I want them to clean it up, and that's their way of saying, hey, all right, we're taking it seriously. We're removing him. He's a detriment now. He's causing too much controversy. And look, I know there's people that say, well, you're not supposed to argue balls and strike, but when it's that blatant and you have proof now, you can't ignore it. And the automatic balls and strikes are coming one way or another, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and then Steve, you can't even ignore this fact either, that people are complaining because the betting thing is getting really serious. And then, Major League Baseball doesn't want to handle another scandal like the way, obviously, the way the NBA had with the scandal with, what's his name, Donahue,
and again, it trickles to the players too. So you have both. You have the referees. Listen, we've been saying it's rigged and fixed and whatnot because of not just the Donahue thing, but now you have the legalized gambling aspect, and it just feels that way.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if all the fans are starting to say something, and it's starting to trend the other way, and people start to say, okay, who? This is when you know it's bad. When people start to ask the questions, and I've heard this several times, who's going to be the umpires of the games that they're getting ready to go to? And they say, if this is going to be this umpire, I'm not paying to go, or I'm not watching. Major League Baseball is having a problem with that, and there have been
football has it too. Football has it too. They have they have statistics. Certain teams, the Patriots.
I'm not
the
saying
Patriots.
It doesn't.
No, I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is, it's not just basketball, and it's in football too. You can have like a certain crew throws X amount of flags against the Patriots and they lose. That's
right. But what I'm saying is maybe it's been at a height that Major League Baseball started to pay attention. Maybe the officials up in the offices, because we all know that there are complaints all the time. There are complaints with every, just like you said, in every sport. But maybe it reached, because we're speculating, maybe it reached an all-time high at Major League Baseball when this umpire was basically going down the path of having to be forced to retire. Because I don't think in any history of any of the sports, any of the major big sports, I don't think an umpire or a referee or anybody like that has retired mid-season unless it was a health issue. You know what I mean? Angel Hernandez was not a health issue. It was clearly stated that. So the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because what I noticed, and you check me if I'm wrong here, what I noticed is there was no, because these major leagues, they pay obviously ESPN and everything else, but this seems to be an obvious story here, and nobody has brought it up. It's just, Angel Hernandez retired mid-season. Okay, but the facts remain, and these are the facts, because I looked it up. These are the facts. No major league umpire or referee has retired mid-season. To me, I'm a casual fan like you are. All my bells and alarms are, well, why? What was the point? What was, you know what I mean, Steve? Like, what's going on? Why would he feel the need to retire instead of waiting to the end of the season? You know what I mean? Like any other referee or any other person, you retire at the end of the season. Why retire in the middle of the season? Well, and why was there no investigative report on this?
Well, I think there was no investigative report beforehand because nobody probably saw it coming. They probably did it behind closed doors with him, right, to keep the media and all the stuff quiet until it actually happened. And look, I think they reached a point where they had no choice. And I know for a fact now that all the umpires are tracked. Their balls and strike ratio is tracked. So, it'll tell you how many calls they made right and how many calls they made wrong. And maybe his not just wrong, but egregiously wrong, and it's costing teams games or rallies or whatever you want to call it. It's impacting the game enough where they feel that the backlash is too strong and they can't keep him around anymore. And that's the only reason you would have a guy leave in the middle. We're not even at the halfway point of the season, right?
Right.
We just finished the quarter point or the third point of the season, and I think that the higher ups, and I don't know if it's Rob Manfred or whoever's in charge of whatever that is, the higher ups somebody made a decision and said, look, we got to get this guy out of here. He's killing us. And that's the only reason you would. And they had to settle with him too. So don't forget that. It's not like they got rid of him and they didn't settle whatever kind of contract he had remaining or whatever settlement they gave him for the next 10 or 20 years for the rest of his life. I mean, that has to be negotiated and he has to agree to it, or they'll fire him, and then it's a legal thing. Then it goes to court. Then he's still on the field. They have to keep him on the field until it litigates. I mean, that's it's a black eye for the sport. You said it earlier. They don't need those kind of distractions. They're trying to draw fans, not make them leave. And I think that it's anything that's negative like that that's going to impact the game and put a black cloud over it. They want to put that out right away And again, I don't know how much of it is the legalized gambling thing, but if any game, to your point about Tim Donnie or the refs now in the NBA, it's like, oh, the games that Angel Hernandez calls costs X team because he doesn't like those players or he doesn't like the manager. Like, there could be, now I'm not saying there is, but there could be sometimes they hold grudges or there's a personal vendetta against a certain coach or something like that. And so, or certain players, if they constantly complain about them, and he'll remember that the next time they step in the box, and it's a constant battle with those guys. And so I think that they just remove all doubt. They get them out of the picture. I'm happy as hell. I'd be doing jumping jacks and cartwheels over here, believe me. Because I've been complaining about this guy for the last 5 years minimum. He should have been gone 10 years ago.
I'm not doubting anything you said. I agree with everything you said. My only question is why hasn't ESPN, Yahoo Sports, Sports Illustrated, Inside Baseball, all these notarized sports websites and everything else, why hasn't one of them, out of all the bigs, put out some kind of expose diving into why Angel Hernandez retired mid-season? Because everything you said is right. I mean, that's probably, but all you're doing is like me. We're doing the same thing. We're both speculating. If this had been like prime example, when the pitcher from the Dodgers last year got hit over the head with that lawsuit and everything else, literally it was one player, it was one girl who's saying something. There was an expose from ESPN, expose from Yahoo Sports, a couple other websites, and they all broke it down. They dived into it. They went to basically the court. They had reporters sitting there talking about it, breaking it all down, figuring out. I'm just throwing it out there, say, no, this is one of those things that make you say, because why?
I think it's coming, Frank. I think it'll come. I think it'll come later on. I think what they do, and I'm just speculating here, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but there's going to be a guy like a Tom Verducci or Buster Olney, one of those kind of guys that has an inside track, right? And maybe the league higher-ups go to those guys and say, listen, give us a chance to let it die down for a little bit before you release whatever info you have or whatever expose it is. And maybe they ask these guys just to hold it back for a little bit.
And that's what I was
wait another month, maybe wait till after the All-Star break, after things die down and it's not so hot of a topic. And then before the season ends, maybe we'll see something. But I'm thinking they're asking these guys to hold back for right now because somebody's got the dirt. Everybody has it now. Nothing's a secret anymore with anybody. And I just think that when they want to find a way to keep things quiet, they will. And I would not be surprised. I mean, look, you're going to have the Yahoo Sports and the CBS Sports and the New York Post or whatever are going to have some kind of story, but it's not going to be the meat and potatoes you're looking for with the nitty gritty and all the particulars. I think those guys, one of those guys somewhere along the line will write something, some kind of article or whatever, and they'll have it because my guess is that they either have it or they're gathering it and it'll come up.
Well, my point I was trying to make is that there's so much money involved in Major League Baseball that they probably are asking one of these guys to hold off on it. My point is that, and I was trying to get it to that point, is that there's so much money involved here. If it's not the betting thing, it's too much money involved because they don't want to tip the apple cart. But anyway, looking at the time, we're going to keep this thing moving. And I want to be able to talk about the Boston Celtics because we all know by now, unless you're living on the moon or under a rock and you don't know this, the Celtics are right now in the finals. And it's a pretty good thing the Celtics in the finals because they were then there by a sweep. And a couple of my friends have been hitting me up and they were really nagging me to a really bad point about saying, hey, the Celtics got the real easiest road, you know, because they face teams with injuries and they got the easiest road to the finals. And it got to the point where I had to post something because it started making me boil. Like the Celtics have been dealing with injuries every year for the last 5 or 6 years. Meanwhile, the sports, you know, the big sports shows and everything else, they act like the Celtics don't have any injuries also. They're dealing with injury. Kristaps Porzingis is one of the main cogs in their
He's pretty much missed the whole playoffs.
Huh?
He's pretty much missed the whole playoffs. Nobody feels bad for us.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, nobody's feeling bad for us. When Golden State made their run, the Golden State Warriors made their run, and they beat the Celtics in the finals, every single team they played that year had a key star missing out. Memphis did, Denver did, Dallas did. all the way up to they had the Celtics, and then when the Celtics came, when they ended up fighting the Celtics in the finals, we had major injuries too because we were dealing with Robert Williams who got injured during the series. But you didn't hear that at all. But of course, the Celtics are making their run, and maybe it's because it's such a dominant run. Because the Celtics have only lost 2 games. They don't, right now, and such a dominant run. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I don't like the parity. Is that what it's called? Or
it's a comparison, Frank. You know something?
Huh?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I saw something not too long before we came on that Jokic from Denver in the playoffs has never beaten a 50-win team. So all the teams he's played have all had less than 50 wins for them to get where they are. So if they played really good teams, maybe they wouldn't. To your point, every team has this. Every team. Listen, I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna do a crossover on sports. Every time Gronk got hurt, how many times did it cost the Patriots? Nobody felt sorry. It happens, and vice versa. Teams. You have to take advantage when there's a guy missing. Every team has guys missing. No matter what sport it is, somebody's usually missing, and it's your opportunity to capitalize. And the path is easy, nonsense or whatever, but that's your opportunity. And if you don't take advantage of it, then shame on you. But to your point, the Celtics for like 4 years in a row were missing guys. This year in the playoffs so far, they've been missing Porzingis, and luckily it hasn't deterred them. But I think that all teams that win championships, you need some luck, you need some breaks. You know it.
Yeah,
I know it. Yeah. You get them, and you got to take advantage, and that's the whole idea. When they win the championship, no one's going to look back and say, "Well, Miami was missing this guy, and Cleveland was missing those 2 guys," and they're just going to say they want. Some people will, but most people won't. Most people will be able to put it to bed and just appreciate the fact that they won the championship.
Here's another thing that I've noticed. During this run, people always also trying to create some dissension because now the big thing, if you remember 18 months ago, the big thing was, hey, Tatum and Brown should be split up. Get rid of Brown. 18 months later, hell, not even 18 months, 6 months after that big thing happened, the Celtics made a run and they went to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Now this year, 1 year later, they literally are in the finals. So now the big thing is, okay, Jaylen Brown won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and everybody's saying now, okay, Tatum felt some kind of way against it because he wasn't next to him when he was celebrating his trophy and everything. And then my thing is to everybody out there who keeps saying that is maybe he didn't want to take some shine away from him. Maybe he wanted him to be, stand alone right there and not be trying to be in his space and act like he's trying to be up under his space. You know what I mean? Maybe he wanted to have him be there by himself, which is, I'll be honest with you, that's what I would have done. If me and you were 1A and 1B on a team, and I was always getting the shine, I would definitely take 2 steps away from you if the shine was now on you. I would definitely do that. And why is it that people can't see that? Because now, since Jaylen Brown he's the best player in the Celtics in the playoffs, maybe now Jason Tatum's saying, hey, he deserves all the accolades he's getting. I don't need to be standing next to him to get this. So I want to throw that out there to see what your thoughts were, Steve, because it's annoying to me. These 1 and 2 points that I just brought up are annoying me like crazy because it's taking away from a possible legacy that these Celtics in 2024 are laying down. Because I've said it to you on this show before. I think this team right here is better than the 2007-2008 team that won an NBA championship. That's my opinion. What's your thoughts?
I think you could be right if they get the job done. And I agree with you also that it's possible that Tatum just sat back a little bit and said, "Hey, this is this guy's time. Let him have his moment." I mean, what does he have to be next to him for? He's already a top 5 player in the league. I mean, he's going to get the max contract after his contract is up. He knows $400 million is coming his way no matter what. I think, and I really hope this is true, because if you look at the other things that he's doing to help them win when he's not scoring, that's a testament to being a team player and wanting to win a championship and not be, I'll say, Attila the Hun, which is what I used to call Andrew Toney from Philadelphia, because he used to hun the ball and just throw ball shots all game long and not pass it. But he doesn't do that. And so there's a double-edged sword for him. The sports radio guys are killing him because he's not making all the shots, and he's not, the guy in the playoffs, and Jaylen Brown stepping up and blah, blah. listen, sometimes you need the other guys to step up. Let me ask you something. If when Larry Bird stole the ball against Detroit and he threw it to DJ to lay it up and in, if he was selfish, would he do that?
Exactly.
He would have grabbed it and just threw it up and got a three and tried to win the game by himself and say, "Oh, look at me." No. Jason Tatum's doing other things to help the team win, and he gets to a quiet 30 or 35 points a lot lately, in my opinion. Now, again, he's a top 5 guy all day long. He can be an MVP, but what I've been harping on them, and you've heard me, is I want these guys to focus on the championship and the team and put the singular stuff aside. Who cares that Jaylen Brown won Holiday could have got it. Both those guys have played unbelievable. And we're lucky that Jaylen Brown is stepping up now, right? We're lucky to have 2 guys, minimum. Holiday has been phenomenal in the playoffs.
Actually, you could say 4. You could say 4 because Holiday's been phenomenal. Derek White's been phenomenal.
And Al Horford in spots.
Yeah.
Pick some games, certain games. He's been like unreal. So look, that's what it takes to win. Everybody has to chip in. Everybody has to be even keeled and just be like, okay, we're one. And I hope that's where they're at right now. So for me, Jason Tatum shouldn't be jealous of not getting maybe he's upset with the voters themselves and like, oh, how come you didn't vote for me? I don't really see that. But maybe there's a switch that went off with him finally that says, hey, look, I don't have to worry about the shoe dropping. I don't have to worry about being MVP. I don't have to worry about all this stuff. Let's get this championship together now. It's our window. If he does that, again, I've said it 1,000 times. If he does that and they win the championship, everything's going to take care of itself. All the accolades, all the, he can't come through in the clutch, the question marks, those are all going to be erased, right? And he's going to cement his legacy. And to your point, if they do it with this team, the way they score points, Frank, 120 points a game or whatever, I agree with you that they would be better than the 08 team. Absolutely. So, look, I hope that you're right, and I hope that Jason Tatum just, listen, everybody thought he was like in the background sulking or whatever. He patted him on the head and was smiling, clapping. That's what I saw. But other people want to spin it. But they want to spin it, Frank, because when they spin it, right, it creates controversy and creates conversation. And so they have to do that because they, look, I'm negative net to a point, but I have to be honest with what I see. And I can't be negative in this case because it's not a negative moment, in my opinion. There's nothing to be negative about.
Not to mention, these same sports guys complain every year when the Patriots was winning. They had to find something to talk about with the Patriots. And the Patriots were running through, especially in the, was it 2017, 18, or 15, 16, around that time when they beat Seattle and they played Philadelphia in the Super Bowl and they beat the Rams. They and then they creating this stuff. But this is what I don't like. I don't like that getting on sports talk radio and saying it. And these young guys on these teams are hearing, like Jaylen Brown is hearing these conversations. He's hearing these things. He listens to sports talk radio, and he's thinking that he's not appreciated in Boston. So when his contract is up, or they eventually have to deal, he's gonna be gone. Jaylen Brown will not be here in 3 years. So people have to get ready to understand and break. And meanwhile, here's another thing. He's getting better every year. He's not, you know what I mean?
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say last year. Last year, I gave him a hard time. Look, he had some moments last year where I was like, all right, we might need to get rid of him. But he's a complete 180 from that now. A whole year later.
You said that 18 months ago. Towards the end of last year, he started playing much better. He helped the Celtics get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he was playing better than Tatum was.
He was still having a problem dribbling with his left hand last year, though.
Yeah, he was.
Even in the playoffs. But think about it this year.
He was still better than he was 2 years ago. He's getting better every year.
But he's better. He's much better this year. I mean, way better. And so
I give him a ton of credit. He's even going to get better than that. He's going to get so good at the time that people are going to be like, well, maybe we should have a real conversation. If one of these guys got to leave, maybe it should be, if Tatum doesn't continue to get better, maybe it should be Tatum. You know what I mean? People are going to have these conversations because Jaylen Brown, at the end of this day, if he continues to keep getting better and better and better, he'll be first team all NBA, and he'll be first team all defensive, NBA too, instead of being third team and second team. he'll be in the first team. Then the Celtics will have a real serious problem on their hands because they definitely can't keep both anyway. You know what I mean? So that's the dilemma that they're going to be dealing with. But before we run out of time, Rolati, I just want to throw this one question out there to you. Tell me if the Celtics make it to the finals and they play Dallas Mavericks, who do you think wins? And if they play Minnesota Timberwolves, who do you think wins?
I think they should beat both teams. And again, not quickly. It won't be sweeps. It'll be 6 games probably minimum to get by both those teams. They're both good, but the Celtics are better. I mean, they've been the best team all year long, and as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot and do stupid things like iso ball all game long, or I feel like as the playoffs have gone on, they've learned from their mistakes. I don't feel that they're doing the same things as badly as they were before. I feel like they're being corrected, whether that's a Joe Mazzulla coaching issue or the other guys on the staff helping him or whatever it is. I feel like he's quicker with the timeouts now. I feel like they're recognizing if they go down, they get a turnover, they go down, they throw up a 3, it doesn't go in and come back. They get another one, they throw up a 3, it doesn't come back. After 2 times down the court, they do change it. They don't just keep chucking them up. You know what I mean? They try to drive the lane. I feel like they've learned, and it's made them better. So the things that we talked about last year and this year on this show endlessly about them throwing up all the threes, I think that they've learned some serious lessons, and I feel that. But I will say this: they need Porzingis to get over the hump. I think
and he's going to be there.
Need him. It's the sole reason that they got him. It's the one piece they didn't have the last probably 3 times they made it as far as they have. And so having him is important, even if it's 20 minutes a game. They got to have him if they want to get over the hump. Because without him, I don't know if they can get it done. Well, I do. I shouldn't say that. Their road to getting it done will be harder. Let's put it that way. Without it.
My concern was when they played Minnesota, they didn't have Porzingis for one of the games. They played them twice, and they split the games. You know what I mean? When they played Dallas, they beat them 2 times. And one time they beat him by 25. The other time they were beating him by 50. Yeah, they beat him both times. And one of the times they played him when they were killing him, it was after the trade. So I'm not concerned about if they play Dallas at all. I just want to say one thing and we'll move on. And I'm going to leave it at this. And we're going to definitely move on. The Celtics have definitely made me think a lot better than them because all year long, when they got into critical situations, they were losing those games. 5 games of the games they played during the season, they lost when it came down to 2 minutes or less, and they had the last, like that big game when they played Denver, and Denver finally beat them and broke their home winning streak. That game came down to 1 possession. The Celtics blew that because Tatum missed the shot last second. The last 3 seconds he missed the shot. There's just so many games, but in the playoffs, they haven't lost one critical game or crucial game when they got down, and they played 3 of them. They won.
So let me throw this at you real quick because earlier in the year we discussed it. Is that in the last 2 or 3 minutes of a game, their record was 2-10. Remember?
Yeah.
Right. And so now in the playoffs, think about it. It's a complete reversal. I get so annoyed with them when they blow the 20-point leads, and for them to come back from 18 points down, this is the complete flip. And I'm happy to see it. And so that's why I say, maybe there's some lessons that they've learned along the way in losing those games, where they could turn the page and flip it and say, okay, now we can be the team to come back. And they did. And so hopefully they can keep it going.
Yeah. You got to give them credit when credit's due. Because I've been bashing them in the head for a long time. I don't want to give them any credit.
You've heard me squawk about them all year long, about the threes and so forth. And so listen, I'm absolutely going to give them credit where credit is due. I mean, they are where we want them to be. I've been saying all year long, it's championship or bust. They have to get this job done now and finish it off. If they don't, it's going to be a huge disappointment. Right. So I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to seeing these guys get this job done.
All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about the New England Patriots because we also got to squeeze in the Boston Bruins, even though they're not playing and their season's over. We got to squeeze in some stuff with them before we wrap up the show. Let me talk about the New England Patriots real quick, and let me throw this out there to you. The Patriots now in OTAs, and the crazy thing is I saw a couple of reports this week about Bailey Zappi. A lot of reporters were still surprised that he's still here now, and I got a bit. We did a show last week. I figured he'd be gone by this week, but he's
so did
he's still hanging around, and more and more people are coming forward saying that what Drake May is showing a lot of Justin Herbert signs in training camp. So my question to you is, Steve, if what we are hearing is true, and this kid has an arm like Justin Herbert, and this kid is connecting with the wide receivers and everything else. Are you one of the people who are calling up sports talk or want to be calling up sports talk radio saying, "Hey, Jacoby Brissett is not the guy. Let's roll him out here"? Or do you think that we should be saying, let's let him sit there for a while and continue to learn because he can be learning from Jacoby Brissett instead of throwing him out to the wolves early on? Where are you at on this this spectrum?
I want Jacoby Brissett to start. It's the whole reason he's here because you can't throw with the kid to the wolves. We've already ruined enough guys around here. There's a reason they brought in Brissett, right? He's a professional. You're gonna have this is what Mac Jones didn't have. He didn't have a veteran guy, a real veteran guy to learn from, and that's what Drake May needs. And listen, I know people are like, "Well, he was the third pick. He has to start." No, he doesn't. Those guys get ruined quick, right? It's the NFL. It's not college. Even if, as you pointed out last week, is that maybe Brissett gets hurt in the first or second week. Let him go through training camp. Let him go through the exhibition season. Let him get the lessons. I mean, that's the whole point of having a guy sit. And, the idea is to develop the guy. He has to get acclimated to the coaching staff, Alex Van Pelt, his quarterback coach, Gerard Mayo. He has to acclimate to all that stuff. And so you have a guy already it's already been in Alex Van Pelt's system in Jacoby Brissett. So, what I heard today is like he made 13 out of 15 throws in the practice. And again, it's just walkthroughs or whatever it is, but he knows the system. So now you have guys that he can ask questions to Brissett after. He can stay after him. He can do film. And you have to develop them. You have to take a breath. I am not on the Drake May has to start because he's a high pick. It's different when you have Drew Bledsoe as the number one guy coming out of college, right? He's the number one overall pick. He's expected to start right away. He's the savior of the franchise, etc. Drake May doesn't have to be the savior. They're rebuilding. Remember, again, we're rebuilding. You got to lay the foundation. This is part of laying the foundation. I don't agree with the sports radio guys are all like, nope, he has to start. Scott Zolak thinks he should start right away. No, dude. You got to give him a breath.
That's why I don't even pay those guys any mind when they talk. I agree with almost everything you said about Mac Jones, except the fact that you said that when Mac Jones came here, he didn't have a guy. He had Cam Newton. Cam Newton was MVP in the league 5 years previous than that.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
and he went 10-7 his first season because he had an offensive coordinator here. And but once what's his name left, his whole that was a coaching issue, and it was an offensive line. I mean, we go on and on and on about Mac Jones. But it looks like right now, it literally looks like our new QB who's coming into the world, and he's the number 3 pick. Drake May has a lot of things going for him. He doesn't have a Super Bowl MVP that he gets to learn behind, but he does have a lot of help there and everything. I'm of the fandom that thinks that he should play. I want to see what he looks like, unless Jacoby Brissett is literally on fire. If Jacoby Brissett is on fire in a couple of games, sit that boy down, let him, But this is also the most competitive QB room since 2001. You know what I mean? So people are not realizing that. Because in 2001, it was with Drew Bledsoe. It was obviously it was Tom Brady, but he was number
Brock
4.
Hewitt, I think, was one of the backups.
Yeah. And I can't think of the other guy.
There was another guy that was 4 of them. I forget who the other.
Yeah, it was 4 of them, but it was the most
Tom
competitive.
stuck in my head.
It was the most competitive room, and right now the Patriots literally have that same. They have 4 QBs, and they also have a very, very competitive QB room. So I'm of the feeling right now. Let this guy come into his own. Let him see what he could do, because when he's ready, they're gonna roll him out here. They're not gonna rush. They don't have to. I just looked at I was watching Inside the NFL or whatever the NFL show is today on ESPN. These guys all came across the TV and they said he should sit out a whole year. I didn't agree with that, but I don't want to rush him either. So
I agree with that to a point. I mean, look, I think you have to look at the schedule too. I mean, you can't put him out. You're going to put him out there in week 3 against the Jets on a short week? I would not want to do that. You'll kill him. You know what I mean? They have good defense, so you have to pick your spots. I think later, listen, maybe it's week 10, maybe it's after their bye week and there's 4 games left and they're not going anywhere and they want to see what they have. Okay. But to put him out there in week 1 or even week 2, I'm not a fan of that right now. I want to see him develop. That's why you have Brissett here. And listen, Brissett's not going to be, Tom Brady or, Aaron Rodgers or anybody like that. But he's a steady QB. And again, that unit has to get cohesive, no matter who the quarterback is, right? So these guys put in a lot of extra work after practice. They put in a lot of extra work with film study. They might do some activities together as a group. I mean, all that stuff's really important for the team camaraderie and building and all that stuff. So there's a long, long, long way to go. But I was happy that they brought Brissett in. I think he's a good fit for what they're trying to do, and you've got to develop this guy. And I honestly wanted to see them get another guy and get rid of Zappe and have two veterans in here, so that you can take your time with Drake May. And if he has to sit out the whole year, it's fine. Listen, the other thing too, he's only 21 years old. So it's not like he's 24 or 25 and you have to rush him. He's got time. I would say, again, it's early. They have 90-man rosters and whatnot through most of exhibition season. I think it's after the second game they have to whittle it down to like 75. You need another experienced QB here with Brissett to learn things, run the show, so on and so forth, in case of injury. And so I think they keep Bailey Zappe here because he's been here. Maybe he's a good locker room guy. I don't know. But he was frustrated today, apparently, with some of the throws he was making. And so I think he's having a little bit of a hard time acclimating to Alex Van Pelt's system, which is understandable because it's new, right? Brissett already knows it. Zappe's learning it. Drake May is learning it. This guy, Milton, he's learning it. I mean, there's a learning curve. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world to have Zappe, but I would have thought he would have been gone by now, and I'm kind of hoping he's gone just to alleviate. And listen, maybe Drake May is the backup. When the dust settles and all said and done, and it's a competition, maybe he beats Zappe out completely.
Well, if the QB roster room stays the same right now, and Jacoby Brissett gets injured right now, let's just say game 1 starts next week. Obviously hypothetically, I think Bailey Zappe is going to be the guy who's going to come running out there to replace him. It's not going to be Drake May like everybody might think. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people think that Drake May's number 2 on the depth chart, even though Zappe is running out there and taking all the the second team reps and everything else. He's not. You know what I mean? He's not, and people are not adjusting to that. And you got the sports talk radio guys pumping all this poison in everybody's heads because they act like they know football. When regardless, the bottom line is it's 1 is Jacoby Brissett and 2 is Bailey Zappe, and that's because they have 2 veterans on the roster, and you need 2 veterans on the roster to be able to move the offense. And the way that they're creating this offense now, they've got the entire left side of the offense. Offensive line new. These guys are like you could obviously see they're going to run the ball. That's going to be the number 1 priority is run the ball. But when they throw it, they're going to throw deep. You know what I mean? They're not going to dink and dunk. When they throw, they're going to throw deep. And they also want to make sure they can connect on deep, especially from the patterns and the run patterns these guys have been displaying. And obviously the Q&As and stuff like that. Q&As, the OTAs. So that's the thing that I'm thinking that people aren't paying attention to. And lastly, and then before we move on to the Bruins.
Actually, I want to ask you a question real quick after that. Go ahead.
Okay, last what I don't like is how people are judging the Patriots right now when it's May. It's in June. And everybody's thinking that they know what's going on when nobody knows what team you have in May or June. Hell, you don't even know what team you have in September. You know what I mean? I really can't stand it. So it really aggravates the hell out of me when sports talk guys keep continuing to push this narrative. You know what I mean? I hate it. But anyway.
But Frank, it's the same issue we have with the Red Sox, right? I said they were going to win 75 games or less, and now they're 500 still. So it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. They won 4 games last year. Everybody's probably expecting 4 wins again. I told you the max for me is 6. I think they can get 6 wins, but if you're expecting 10, 12 wins, I would be shocked. But it's not another question. It's not. It's the NFL. So yeah, I see where you're coming from to a point, but if people just reel back a smidge, right, and realize what you're working with, then like you said last week, they could be 0-7. But
it could be.
Maybe they, maybe along the way they catch a few breaks and they're not 0-7 and they're 2-5 or 3-4.
They could literally be 5-2. We don't know the teams. We don't know the teams you're going to get because everybody's basing the team, this year's team, on what's last year's results for every NFL team. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Everybody does it. But what people don't realize is there are major changes on every NFL roster, and those changes on the NFL roster affects obviously the outcome of these games. So you
The
don't.
one thing that you have to pay attention to with the turnover is the coaches, because the assistant coaches get plucked to be head coaches somewhere else. And so a team, and I'll just say Detroit, just because their offense was the best I've ever seen it, other than when they had Barry Sanders, right? That offensive coordinator chose to stay there. Now, had he left, what would their offense be like? And so Eric Bieniemy, same thing. Like, you can just pick Josh McDaniels leaves. I mean, this is the difference between some of these teams being really good, that were good last year, and then dropping off the following year.
Yeah, and also
get
high
plucked.
profile veterans too. High
And
profile
the veterans that leave too. So look,
Yeah.
it's changing every year for all those teams. To your point, I guess I'm trying to add on and say, hey, I agree with you. Here's why. It's not
Right.
just the Patriots. It is everybody. They all have
Right.
issues.
Right.
But I did want to ask you something about something I heard earlier today about Drake May getting virtual reps in the office upstairs while everybody else is on the field practicing.
Yeah,
however he's getting those reps. I heard that, and of course, the sports radio guys like, oh my god, no, that's horrible. He's up there playing video games. It's like, okay, I heard some other things where it's like, okay, there's more teams that are actually doing this. It's not just a Patriots thing. They're not being innovative or reinventing the wheel.
No.
So what's the advantage of him getting these virtual reps? So
I dived into that too when I heard it. The virtual reps are them learning the playbook and the routes. That's all that is. He's not literally standing there doing with the thing on his eyes and pretending to throw the ball. He's literally learning the playbook as the players are moving by the virtual reps. You're seeing what.
Frank, where'd you go?
Sorry, I got a phone call. Sorry. You're seeing what people are doing in the runs they're running, like, you know what I mean, in live action, because he's.
All right, I kind of get where he's coming from. Right? So, listen, all right, I get it now. It's not like he's up there playing Madden, trying to get the virtual reps of how to beat defenses.
Right.
And so forth. Right. I just found it a little odd. And maybe it's going to help them. I don't know, but whatever they feel is necessary to develop him, I say go for it. There's technology up the wazoo everywhere. It's all working, or most of it's working. Take advantage, use it. I don't care. I mean, as long as he's on the field, he's good. Then I don't care what he does.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And looking at the time, let's move on and get this last few minutes about the Bruins. Even though they're not playing. Even though I've heard a lot of mean things from a lot of people this week and everything else, let me just throw this out there to you, because I see your notes of what you had. But before I get into your notes about what you had, do you think the Boston Bruins are going to have a drastic roster by this time? Because the things I've been hearing on Sports Talk, it sounds like they're going to make a lot of major moves coming up. What do you think?
Well, we discussed it last week. They have to. They have contracts expiring. They have old guys they need to replace. They need to change the DNA a little bit. I gave you the example of Florida when they lost.
Hold on 1 second. Let me rephrase the question, because maybe I didn't ask the question right. I heard on Sports Talk Radio they were saying that the Boston Bruins are going to have a 60% turnover roster re-imaging, so to speak.
I agree with that.
Think that's you agree with that? Wow. Okay.
I do. Think about the guys, and I mean, without getting too specific, I mean, we already have. Van Riemsdyk's probably not going to be back. Jake DeBrusk's probably not going to be back. Grzelcyk's not going to be back. I'd be surprised if they brought Maroon back. And that's just 4 guys off the top of my head. So their turnover on their roster could be 50 to 60%, and they need to, because they don't have enough talent. That the requisite talent that they need to get over the hump is not there, and they're going to have to figure it out. They need a number 1 center. We've been hopping on it all year long. Whatever. I agree with you. I think there could be a lot of roster turnover. I mean, Jake DeBrusk wants to stay, but if he wants to stay at $6 million a year, bye. Sorry, that's too high. So look, I'll put it this way. I was disappointed with Don Sweeney last year when he didn't really push the envelope and trade away some guys like Omar and Grzelcyk and maybe Brandon Carlo and even Jake DeBrusco. Some guys I felt that like, hey, they need to get rid of these guys and get some upgrades and free up some salary. This year, now off season, I am expecting that. And if he comes back with, 80% of what they still have, I'm going to be really disappointed. They need more than 20%. So think about it. You have 24 guys on a roster, so to speak, because you have like a traveling team or a bunch of extra guys. So let's just say 24. 20% of those guys, 10, 4 or 5 guys. If he only changes out 4 guys or 5 guys out of all those guys, no, sorry, it's not enough.
Well, it's a kind of a big risk, when you have a high turnover on your roster on any team in any sport. It's a big risk that you're taking. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. So you have your notes. Tell me about this Pastrnak and tell me about this. What's going on in your notes? I wanted to hear about this.
All right, so there's usually hockey tournaments in the off season overseas, and they have what's called a international hockey tournament, and Pastrnak and Zacha both played for their home country of Czechia, or whatever used to be Czechoslovakia, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually won the gold medal. And Pastrnak scored one of the goals. I think they won 2-0. He scored a goal in that game, the gold medal game. And so it's a huge thing for them to go back to their country and win. And I think he is upset because in February of the 24-25 season coming up, they're going to have another tournament. I lost my note for it. Actually, I think I put it up here. There's going to be another tournament. It's going to be 4 teams. It's going to be the U.S., Canada, Finland, and Sweden. It's kind of like the old. It's called the Four Nations tournament. It's kind of like the old World Cup of Hockey, only scaled down, smaller. And they do these tournaments. They were doing them every 4 years, I want to say. And I was fortunate enough to go to the World Cup of Hockey in 1996 when the USA played Canada, and it was phenomenal. Without getting into it too much, but still, all the top guys from their countries play, and so these guys are pissed off. They're frustrated that their team isn't one of the 4 teams, and so it's really icing on the cake for both those guys to get the gold medal in their own building too. It was in the Prague Arena. So, I mean, kudos to those guys. I wish it was a Stanley Cup here. Maybe next year it will be. But, credit to those guys. They, whatever it is that they did for their country, I mean, hey, good for them. I mean, as long as they don't get hurt, I don't care if they play on the moon. Just don't get hurt.
Yeah, but that's a 50-50 crapshoot. You know that like I know it. You know what I mean?
But they're trying to draw ratings and fans, and so when you have tournaments like the upcoming Four Nations tournament, I think they're trying to bring those kind of tournaments back every couple of years or whatever. And also 2026, I think you're going to have ice hockey in the Winter Olympics too. And so all the guys now, they want to play for their country. They want to get recognized. And so this is a good thing, on a smaller scale for them. I do want to mention, and I don't know what direction you were going with the Bruins, but I do want to mention that there was an Almarkton, New Jersey rumor floating around. And there's also a rumor floating around about them being interested in Tyler Toffoli from the Jets. He's a 30-goal scorer. He's a winger. And, the rumor is that the Bruins do like him and they're interested in him. And the talk was putting him on the power play with Brad Marchand. And I'll just say this. He's 32 years old. I'm not a fan of signing these guys when they're that age. I'll point back to David Backes back in 2016 when they signed him to a 5-year, $30 million contract, $6 million a year. He was a bust. I'm not saying Toffoli will be a bust, but he's 30 years old and 32 years old. He's on the wrong end. He's on the wrong end of 30, in my opinion, to get a 4 or 5 year deal. I would not want him. I want a number 1 center instead of him. I want a guy that can win faceoffs. It's a huge detriment to them all year long, and it showed really heading the playoffs. So I'm not a fan of that rumor. I don't know where it started, but I want to squash it here. Negative Ned's not a fan. Let me read this. Hold on. I got my glasses on. One of my friends made a comment in here, Bob. Let's see what he's got to say. He said, need a new coach. Put Negative Ned behind the bench.
And you would do it too.
I would do it. Absolutely. I would absolutely do it. I'd be
All
I'd be
right,
knocking some heads there.
So looking at the time, we're gonna keep this show moving. We had no poll questions last week, but let's
No
do
poll
a
questions. It was a short week and a long weekend, and I didn't.
Yeah,
I
I get it. But I'm gonna throw a poll question out right now, and let's put it back. We'll circle back on the poll question because I have a couple of poll questions I could throw out there. But the biggest one to me right now is do you think Jason Tatum is upset behind the scenes or jealous of Jaylen Brown? Now, I'll put it. I want to see what the general audience
I'll
is
pick
saying.
that up. That's a good question.
Without sports talk in their ear, and you know what I mean. Do you think Jason Tatum is jealous of Jaylen Brown right now, or is he happy for him and the team right now? Because obviously we're not gonna have no basketball for a whole week, and not into the finals, which comes a week from Thursday. You know what I mean?
I know that's a bummer.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm loving the time off because Porzingis is going to get better. So now there's that. So last week's predictions, we didn't really even we did some predictions, but we didn't do any predictions that would have a consequence in a week. You know what I mean? We made our predictions. Right?
No, mine was that Juju Smith would get hurt in the OTAs and be out for the season. So
actually, he came back better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a no-no. And yours was that Brissett would get injured a lot earlier, and May would be pushed out there in game 1 or 2, and that's a long-range prediction. So we need something a little more short. Short timing. I mean, you can't do a Celtics one. They're not playing for another week. Patriots, it's OTAs.
So that means we're gonna do a Red Sox one.
We're gonna have to do a Red Sox one. I don't even know what to put for them because my fear is that they're just going to start going down the tubes.
See, this is the negative Ned that's born.
The slump. I say the hitting slumps continue, and they lose more games next week than they win. And I don't even know who they're playing yet.
And I say that they come out of their dry spell because every baseball team every year they have a slump. Sometimes it's mid-season. Sometimes early in the season, sometimes they have 2 or 3 slumps. Look at the Dodgers right now. With the Dodgers, last time I checked, they lost 5 in a row.
I saw that.
Yeah, with that lineup and with that pitcher, how the hell you lose 5 in a row? Meanwhile, the Yankees are ripping it like they're you know what I mean. So
next week when we come back, the Red Sox will be under 500. That's my prediction.
And my prediction is they'll be over 500. How about that? I'm going the opposite. So whatever you say, I'm gonna say whatever you say.
No matter what, no matter what, the Red Sox are.
So you just have that ready, right? You just have it ready to go.
I have to keep it handy just in case I need it.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I don't think the Red Sox are soft. I don't think the Red Sox are at all. Okay, so what else? I wanted to throw. I lost my train of thought. You threw up that soft thing.
I threw them all off.
Oh my God! I literally had something I wanted to. I don't know. You know what it is? Next week it'll come back between now and next week and everything else. But the hot topics that between now and next week is basically we're gonna figure out what's going on with the Patriots, more and more OTAs. Even though I think they slow down OTAs, and is it next week or the week after?
I think it's at the end of this week. It might be done or at the end of next week or whatever it is. It's short, and then they have a break until training camp in July. No, it's training camp's usually the last 2 weeks of July or the last week of July. It's around
right.
I think it's the last 2 weeks. And man, it comes quick. I mean, a friend of mine, we say the same thing every year. It's like the Super Bowl ends, and in a blink, it's July. It's like, what the hell? Football just ended. It really feels like it just ended, kind of. So
it doesn't feel like it just ended to me, especially when my team didn't even make the playoffs. To me, it seemed like this season took forever because usually the Patriots are playing in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Their season ends sometimes in January. You know, unless they win the Super Bowl, then it ends in February. Then it comes fast. But when your team is done, when the season's over, and then you have to sit there like this and look at the draft. Oh my God, that was a long time.
I'll tell you, the draft took forever to get here. It took forever. It was killing me.
I couldn't. Oh my God, it was driving me nuts.
2 months of listening to a bunch of draft nonsense, and I was ready to, whatever.
And if I
saw
one more draft,
I was going to pull it out.
If I saw one more draft prediction, I was gonna scream.
Oh, the stupid, mock draft, 89.0. It's like, oh, guys, come on, again? How many can you have? It was ridiculous. It's just too much.
But they and this year, I never noticed how many draft, mocks that they had. I never noticed it before. So until this year, but then it was getting ridiculous.
Way too many, way too painful.
It really was.
I usually eat a lot of that stuff up, but I can't.
So we're getting ready to wrap up. We're getting ready to roll up out of here. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll be the night before the Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots. Celtics play the NBA Finals, and by this time next week, we'll know if they're going to play the Mavericks or they're going to play Memphis, Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm just all over the place.
That's all right. Let me do a mini rant on. Here we go again with the stupid streaming crap. These channels are really porking people now. I was in Vermont at my parents', and we could not watch the Celtics because my father has DirecTV, and they lost ABC as part of their package. So now all the games are on ABC, and he can't watch any of them. And they're in the finals. And so I am so fed up with these deals and these channels and the streaming, and it's like every time they can't negotiate, it should still be on somewhere. ESPN has the rights to the ABC. They want it on network TV, but still, why can't you carry it on ESPN and ABC? You own both. Unless the Stanley Cup is going on, should be no reason. And so I'm finding, and I heard that ESPN is bundling now. Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN are going to be in a bundle now. And so remember back in the day when you had cable bundling? Now the streaming crap is bundling. It's like you can't win. And so this is ridiculous.
Been around for almost a year now. So I understand you're catching up to it, but that bundle's been here. So I get it. It's
unnecessary. I mean, they have to find a way to make it so that everybody can see the games. My parents are in their 70s. They're not streaming anything. It's unfair and it's unfortunate and it's really frustrating. And
don't worry, people. I'll get Steve off his soapbox. We'll talk about it online.
All right. That's going to have to be a what's negative Ned rant, I think, next week.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we're going to see you guys next week. And of course, the Orioles beat the Red Sox again 6-1 just now. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next week. Anyway, guys, we'll see y'all next week, next Wednesday at 8:00. That's Negative Ned, known as Steve. I'm Frank. We'll see you.
See you next week, everybody. Thank you.